needed a lot of support.
Absolutely.
A lot of support and ways to, and help figuring out how do I communicate my feelings in a way that's going to be helpful. That's just saying, this is how I feel. Not this is how you make me feel, but this is how I feel, but not when I'm really in the middle of it. Because we can't deny our feelings. I mean, well, we can. I'm really good at that.
Yeah,
but
I'm quite with you.
I think what's really important is there's not one transition period either.
That's right.
It's not even this up to 30. When you have, because I have a daughter who's 40, who's had her issues with bipolar disorder. It's very hard for her to regulate. And it's a constant transition for both she and I. So you figure you got through one transition and there's another one to happen, to come forward, and you're going through a second one right now. And I think that's a very valid question, you know, especially when you're doing this kind of work, right?
Oh, yeah.
You feel like, I think it's hard doing this kind of work when you're going through it, because you say, I should know.
Absolutely.
But it's a brand new situation, brand new challenge, and I think it is hard to get in touch with all of those feelings.
I wish I could take a chart like we do with the, as I see, and just have them to sit down and just, so we can write it down. And because that's the piece that holds them accountable to for what they say and hold parents accountable. You know, it's beautiful done with our families that we work with, and you know, we have our little agenda, we put our little sticky on the wall, and our strengths and our needs and our options and our tasks. Get your own kids to do that. It's like slitting your throat and bleed in front of them or something. I don't know.
I just have to say, I was just telling my coworker, anger for me was a wonderful thing. Honestly, because I felt like on those moments when I was so angry, I won't tell you what I could have thought about doing. Help me step back and get away from the emotional stuff and just be able to clear my head somehow and to think about what really needs to, you know, because a lot of this is so much of our emotions that just like cloud and confuse everything about what's going on in our family and our young adults and our children. So I found times, honestly, anger to be a positive thing, if used in the right way, I guess.
Even if it's not, because I completely agree with her. I think I make the best choices for my son when he pisses me off. Because then I'm done. I'm like, all right, listen, you're going to do this and this and this, and you better figure it out. Don't come back here till you know, because until then I'm like, but why don't you figure it out? No, and he's looking at me like I'm about to eat her alive. Like, but when I'm done, I'm just like, okay, clearly you're doing your own thing. Like, make that happen for yourself. Call me when you're ready. And then he's like, wait, you know, like, what just happened? I feel like she just cut me, you know, and then his whole stuff shifts. For a little, so the honeymoons are getting shorter, but then, you know, a whole month, he's like, come home all the time. It is an incredible shift if I was able to be more consistent.
Consistently angry.
Consistent with the cutout, consistent with the like, I'm not going to do all these things and accept all these things and shift for you, shift for you, shift for you.
But
I think maybe.
I think we can also role model, because I don't think I did such a good job really listening to my daughter and what was important to her, what she wanted. And I could have been a better role model in terms of how I dealt with my anger, because anger was tough for, I mean, it's tough for both of us, it still is. And, you know, I would tend to get wrapped up in my feelings without necessarily hearing her, and that's something, you know, that's what you said, John, basically ask the young person what they want, ask, and I don't think I'm not sure that I did a lot of asking.
And of course, if you're a parent, you ask the kid what the kid wants to do, you can expect them to stick with it, Yeah. And you can always work with them and say, well, what about this?
It's easy. I mean, I completely agree with you, and I think that if I had been able to hear some of my son's stuff, but I have to be honest, for myself, and when I look at parents, that's easy to say until they took money out of your pocketbook, and you don't really care what they want.
Right.
You're like, you didn't make good choices, and what you want is really besides the point right now. You know what I mean? So I hear you, but sometimes their stuff really puts them in a position, and this is with families that we work with. So often they have they have backed themselves into such a corner that everything you suggest to the parents looking at you like,
Right.
like I could care less about all that. So I think that that's hard, especially with older children that they've been through, run the gamut with these kids. They've offered those options, they've created things, they've started programs, they've been in services, they've been through hospitalizations and, step down plans, and they've done it all. And then you come in like, so I had a great idea, how about we sit and we talk and ask what he'd really like to do, and they're looking at you like, I don't care, like, you need to come find somebody to remove them from my house. Because I don't care what he wants. So,
That's right.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Certainly, the exercise brought up a lot of very powerful feelings and experience, and I just also keep thinking about, what, we were ourselves at one point young adults.
Never.
Say, what did I do then? I'm looking at my kids now in their 20s. How was I like in the 20s? And how was I like when I, as a freshman in college? People around me say, you need to talk to someone, and I just refuse. Why did I do that? And I think that reflecting back to John, what you said is that because people, they were telling me, oh, you need to go and talk to the counselor. I think it's very hard with that mindset at that age, being just saying, oh, you don't need to go to talk to someone. So, but I thank you all, this exercise has turned out to be much richer and much more personal, and I really appreciate the sharing of all of us. With that said, we're going to have a lighter note, maybe, with Natalie.
How do I follow up?
Well, we'll see.
tap dance.
Can you sing?
In our last forum, we actually, all of you, and I actually reviewed part of that tape from last time, there's a lot of discussion about the strength meets assessment, the scale, the instruments. And so we decided, hey, it seems that everyone have comments and maybe even some concerns about how to use that and so forth. So I contacted Natalie, and she is kind enough to say she's going to take that lead. For the next 15 minutes, we're not going to cut her time short. You will have the same amount of time, 15 minutes, to go over this. And then we did present some questions. It's on the agenda that we sent out, and I don't know whether you still want to kind of follow those questions, but it's all yours to facilitate. Exactly.
I don't know any. Well, basically, this first exercise that we did really ties in very nicely. I mean, how do you take those stories that people shared with us this morning and document that in a strengthening culture discovery tool? That's the richness of the kinds of information that we want to try to put into that tool for it to be very individualized, really rich with the family's story, their culture, values that they hold, and how do those values, how do they actually speak to the individual in that family? And this is what I mean by that. I'm very briefly going to share with you, since this is the day of self-disclosure. On Saturday, I had some friends over, my 10 and 8-year-old children and my husband. And we were celebrating one of my friend's birthday. And so after the meal, we were just chilling on the couch, and we put on something that we could all mutually watch, which after lots of channel surfing settled upon a 3-hour documentary of what led up to September 11th and the day of September 11th. And I had this training very much in mind, so I'm experiencing this moment through the lens of culture and and what is it? And the people's responses in the room to what they were watching was really powerful for me. At one point, a 23-year-old got up and left and went outside, and I followed her out to see how she was handling this. And she shared with me how when September 11th happened, she was 11. And she remembers the teachers getting very upset and parents coming in and removing kids from the school because they feared that where she was living at the time would be the next place to be terrorized. And so now she's reliving it from a 23rd-year-old point of view. And she's afraid to express how she feels about this terrorist act because the family members that were in my house don't share the same political viewpoints that she does. So she was sitting in this and experiencing it in a whole new way, but feeling very alone in that. And they're a very loving family. I was also struck by the narrator who was giving this very factual account of what happened that day, describing the terrorists as honest, hardworking, loyal, blood is thicker than water, integrity. And I thought, wow, those are values I might use to describe myself. So when we say values, and we're talking about values in a strengthening culture discovery tool, what does hardworking really mean to me versus what hardworking might mean to a terrorist? So that was another thing that struck me. And then I think to tie it into the mommy stories that we've been hearing, my 8-year-old daughter is laughing as the building is coming down and people are running for their lives. And I'm thinking, well, this is awkward in front of my guests. I have to teach her that this isn't right. And so I'm indoctrinating her into our culture. And my husband's explaining, these are bad guys coming from another country. This was the worst thing in America. And she goes, it's snowing. Look, it's snowing.